Well, hi, and welcome back to Evan's Homeschool Adventure. I'm Sarah, a homeschooling mom of 4 kids ages preschool through 2nd grade. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Gameschooling. I'm going to show you a board game called Kingdomino that I've been using to help my kids develop a conceptual understanding of multiplication, as well as to reinforce their skills of counting and comparing numbers. I am super excited about this video because it combines 2 things I absolutely love: gaming and mathematics. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about Gameschooling. There is so much research out there that demonstrates that kids learn best through play. In fact, you might say that play is the key to learning. It's for this reason that I like to incorporate play into my homeschool as much as I can by, among other things, incorporating strategically chosen games as an intentional instructional strategy for learning. We do this in content areas as diverse as math, English language arts, foreign language, history, social studies. There is a game out there for just about anything you could be teaching. Playing games regularly can help kids develop their social skills such as sharing, verbal communication, turn-taking, sportsmanship. It can help with cognitive and memory development as well as other areas of executive functioning. Games can help kids feel comfortable taking risks in learning that they wouldn't otherwise feel safe to take. And play can enrich and develop skills of inquiry, expression, experimentation, and teamwork. There are so many benefits to Gameschooling. What does Gameschooling mean exactly? It just means that we use strategically selected games in order to teach and/or reinforce specific skills. Some homeschoolers choose to use games exclusively in order to teach certain subjects or particular skill areas, and others choose to use games alongside a curriculum that they've chosen for their homeschool. One of my favorite homeschool bloggers, My Little Poppies, has a whole e-course on Gameschooling. I'll include the link below in case you want to check it out. Okay, so that's a bit about Gameschooling in general. Now I want to show you an example of one way this could look. I'm going to show you how I've been using a board game called Kingdomino to help my 1st and 2nd graders develop a conceptual understanding of multiplication, as well as some bonus practice with counting and comparing numbers. There are a lot of other ways you could use this game to develop or enhance math skills, but this is the content my kids are up to right now, so this is how we've been using this game so far. In case you're not familiar with Kingdomino, I'll briefly describe the game for you. This is a tile-laying game for 2 to 4 players put out by Blue Orange Games. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes to play, and it's marketed for ages 8 and up, though my 6 and 7-year-olds played just fine with some help at the end with the scoring, which I'll show you in just a minute. In the game, each player is trying to build a kingdom around their castle. Players take turns choosing dominoes, which have 2 sections of land. This tile has a section of water on the left and a section of wheat field on the right. I want you to notice the crown on the water section. That crown makes a big difference. On some tiles, there's more than 1 crown, and on other tiles, there are no crowns at all. Players can only add tiles to their kingdom if one section matches an existing section of land already around their castle. So this tile can only be placed next to another water tile or another wheat field tile. The goal of the game is to create large sections of matching land. One constraint, though, is that the kingdom must fit entirely within a 5x5 square. At the end of the game, players count up the number of adjacent tile sections of the same color and then multiply that number by the number of crowns in that section of their kingdom. What happens if you don't have any crowns in that particular section? You don't earn any points for it. There are a lot of great YouTube videos that show how to play this game, and I'll link to one of them in the description box below. For now, hopefully my description here is enough to illustrate how Kingdomino has the potential to really get kids thinking about spatial reasoning and multiplication. Tiles can be played only if they match other existing tiles of the same color. Players have to keep their entire kingdom within a 5x5 square that they themselves construct. The scoring requires kids to think about multiplication, which is what I want to highlight in this video, not to mention all the strategy kids could consider when deciding which tiles to select next. Okay, so that's a little bit about the game itself. Now, in order to show you how we game school with Kingdomino, which for us really comes at the end of play, I'm going to show you a time-lapse game that my husband and I played. Okay, so remember, to score in Kingdomino, each player needs to add up the number of adjacent matching square types, so like water, forest, wheat field, grassland, etc., and then multiply that by the number of crowns in that section. No crowns, no points. You're multiplying by 0 here. Now I'm going to show you how I take my kids through scoring their kingdom, which is how I'm introducing the concept of multiplication to them. So here's how my kingdom turned out. I've got this section of grassland and there are some crowns on it, so I'm going to put one of my meeples in that section as a visual cue that this is a section that I need to score. I've also got this big water section with some crowns on it, so I want a meeple in that section too. I've got 2 other territories, the wheat field and the forest, but unfortunately I'm not able to score those territories because they don't have any crowns. Mathematically, in those areas, I'm multiplying by 0 crowns, which means 0 points. When my kids start counting the squares in their territories, I have them use magnetiles to concretely represent the number of squares they have. This concrete representation is important, and it reflects the concrete pictorial abstract approach, or CPA approach, I take to mathematics education. This approach builds on kids' existing knowledge by introducing abstract concepts in concrete and tangible ways. It involves moving from concrete materials, like the magnetiles in this example, to pictorial representations, which I'll have my kids do in a few weeks after more practice in the concrete stage, to abstract symbols and problems, which is where we'll end up later. I love this approach because it really helps kids understand the meaning behind the mathematics. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate and talk through what my kids do at this point. This scoring is where the value of this game schooling is for us right now. I've got 5 adjacent squares in this grassland territory and 3 crowns. So I'm going to count out my first set of 5 magnetiles to represent those 5 adjacent squares. I'm going to put those in a group, and that group represents one set of 5 squares, my first crown. Now I'm going to count out a second set of 5 squares, or my second crown. And now I'm going to count out my third group of 5 squares for my third crown. 5, 10, 15, so for my grassland, my 3 sets of 5 gave me 15 points. And here, my kids usually put some of their sets together to make groups of 10 because it enables them to skip count visually at the end instead of counting by ones. And this is usually the point at which I mention to my kids that what we're doing here, this repeated addition or adding equal groups, has another name. It's also called multiplication. Okay, now let's count my water territory. Here, I have 9 adjacent squares with 3 crowns. I'm going to count out my first set of 9 magnetiles to represent those 9 squares. And that's my first crown. But I have 2 more crowns, so I'm going to count out my second set of 9. And I have 1 more crown, but here I don't have enough green magnetiles to keep counting with green, so I'm going to switch to orange. And here is my third set of 9 magnetiles to represent my 9 adjacent squares of water territory. Now I'm going to see how many points I have all together. Instead of counting them all up one by one, I'm going to make groups of 10, which is easy because I can just make stacks of equal height and then count by tens to get my total number of points. 10, 20, 30, 40, 1, 2. I have 42 points. Now let's see how my husband's kingdom turned out, and we'll do the scoring for his. Here's his first scoreable section, grassland. I'll put a meeple in that territory as a visual cue that I need to remember to count it, and don't forget to remove it as you're counting that section so you don't accidentally count it twice. Here's his second scoreable section. We'll put a meeple there. And this huge wheat field is his third scoreable section. Oh, and there's another scoreable section, just 1 square. So he's got 4 scoreable territories. Let's get started by scoring his grassland section. He's got 4 adjacent grassland tiles and 2 crowns. So we'll count out 2 sets of 4 squares. That's our first set. And here is our second set of 4 squares. This second section also has 4 adjacent squares, but only 1 crown. So here we're going to count out 1 set of 4 magnetiles and add it to our score. His wheat field has 8 adjacent squares with 1 crown. So let's count out 1 set of 8 squares. Notice that there's another square of wheat field in his kingdom, but it's not horizontally or vertically contiguous with the scoreable section, so we can't count that one. And here's his last scoreable territory, 1 square of mine, but it has 2 crowns pictured on it, so we're going to count 2 sets of 1, giving us 2 points for that section. And now let's make stacks of 10 so that we can easily see what his score is and compare it to mine. He has 10, 20, and 2, 22 points. Then we can visually compare that to my score. And from here, you can ask questions like, who won? By how much did he or she win? What's the point difference between the player with the most points and the player with the least points? You can have them write down the scores and order them from greatest to least or least to greatest. There's so much you can do here. Okay, so that is how we are using Kingdomino to develop a conceptual understanding of the multiplication, as well as to reinforce some basic counting and comparing numbers skills. I also really like how much communication the kids are doing around the mathematics as they're going through this process. Thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear in the comment section below what games you're using for learning in your homeschool. And if you found value in this video, please consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the like button on this video if you found it useful. Until next time, see you in the next video.